You are being lied to. The current administration's deportation drive of criminal illegal migrants is meeting unnecessary judicial roadblocks at every step of the way. Even after Donald Trump declared a national emergency in January over the border crisis, people like Stephen Miller and Charlie Kirk have been making rounds on mainstream media, setting the legal record straight against what Trump believes is judicial activism. Watch this for yourself before I tell you what's really going on.
Stephen Miller was saying in that segment yesterday, which we have a clip of, which was amazing and well worth your time to watch all 10 minutes, that all three pieces of the Alien Enemies Act allow the president to act here. Yes, there has been a war declared on the United States by these countries, he said, including Venezuela when it comes to their gangs, and they've committed an invasion. And there's been something less than an invasion, an incursion on the territory of the United States, all three of which would activate the Alien Enemies Act, which allows the president to do this. Here's a little bit of the Stephen Miller, Cassie Hunt exchange yesterday, SOT 11.
Masterclass.
You're not hearing me and you're not understanding me. Read the statute, Alien Enemies Act, 1798. It says if a predatory incursion is perpetrated by a foreign government, so it lists three qualifying actions. It could be an act of war.
It does say in the very beginning there has to be a declared war against a nation or a state. That's what it says.
No, wrong. Look up the statute. It's on my account on social media.
That's actually where we found it.
Yes. It says good. Or a predatory incursion or an invasion. The statute delineates three criteria for triggering the Alien Enemies Act. A district court judge can no more enjoin the expulsion of foreign terrorists to foreign soil, that he can direct the movement of Air Force One, that he can direct the movement of an aircraft carrier.
And here's what's crazier. This power tussle between the judicial and executive branch is happening over a group of people that neither side denies are illegally residing inside the country. The real contention from the district court's Judge Boasberg is whether the conditions truly exist to trigger the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, whether those illegal immigrants from places like El Salvador are really affiliated with gang members. But that's technically a problem for El Salvador to solve, and they're pretty good at it considering the unprecedented crackdown against gang violence that the country has done in the last 2 years. So what's the point of throwing this wrench in the deportation drive, especially when over 2/3 of Americans agree with the deportation of criminal illegal immigrants inside the US? This is an evolving story right now, so make sure you're subscribed to Millionaire Mentor to become part of this conversation. But watch what Charlie Kirk said about this kind of judicial overreach, because it's making more sense by the passing day.
And Stephen made an incredibly important point here, which is, and it wasn't in that piece of tape, which is that the president does not even need to acknowledge this district court decision. Yeah, the Supreme Court will rule on it eventually, but it is well settled in American law that anything that comes to foreign policy is directly under the President of the United States. We did not doubt, for example, that Joe Biden had the ability to do a disastrous withdrawal of Afghanistan. We hated what he did. We hated how he did it, but he has that power. I mean, it's very simple. He could do it. And I want to just get back to this point, though, that the very cheerleaders for democracy, you notice they don't talk about the threats to democracy very much anymore. They've kind of silenced on that entire talking point the last 6 months. That the very people that are saying that they're for democracy are now wanting unelected institutions to slow down the will of the American people and to completely stop it. Their goal is to try to throw sand in the gears.
And of course, we all knew it was going to escalate to the Supreme Court eventually, which it now has with Donald Trump filing for a stay order that says, quote, this case presents fundamental questions about who decides how to conduct sensitive national security related operations in this country, the president through Article 2 or judiciary through TROs, and Donald Trump himself has fired back against this Obama-era judge in pretty clear terms, especially when even the case of the leaked signal chats coincidentally landed on the same judge's desk. He wrote on Truth Social saying in part, quote, how disgraceful is it that Judge James Boasberg has been given a fourth Trump case, something which is statistically impossible. There is no way for a Republican, especially a Trump Republican, to win before him. And if you think about it, this is not even a case of the judicial branch protecting citizens because illegal immigrants are just not constitutionally protected in the same way. Add to this the fact that even conservative estimates state that over 8 million illegal immigrants have crossed the US border in the last 4 years, as well as national emergency being imposed by Trump, much of the Republican Party, including the press secretary Caroline Leavitt, have started to straight up call it judicial activism. Perhaps a more absurd claim from the left is that the Alien Enemies Act of the 18th century is too old to be triggered at a time like this, against which Tom Homan responded to that Constitution is even older than that.
But what do you say to those who say what do you say to those who claim you're using a 200-year-old law to circumvent due process?
An old law? Not as old as the Constitution. We still pay attention to that, don't we?
Some would say this is
So what's the left's rationale? That older laws don't apply anymore? Or that unelected bureaucrats or judges can impede legitimate executive actions? Considering nearly 100,000 people a year have been losing their lives with drugs coming across the border, as well as millions of undocumented and untraceable migrants in the last 4 years, it has now become a national security matter more than just immigration policy, and that's an era where it's the elected office of the president and his executive power which have traditionally overridden impediments from other branches of the government.
Can a district court judge say, you know what, actually Russia and Ukraine, the war must continue. Actually, the Israel-Gaza conflict must continue. This is the exact same thing that we are talking about here. It has to deal with matters of foreign policy and enemy invasion, and a law is on the books. And it is worth repeating that, they say it's this 200-year-old law, but what they're really getting at is that which is old must be discarded. You see, we as conservatives believe that which is old and that which lasts is actually beautiful and worthy of studying because it's a reflection of human nature. And even though the times change, human nature does not change. That's why the Constitution is the longest lasting political document of its kind. Because it was not written about that, Charlie, for the times. It was written to stand the test of time.
The other thing about that is it is truly like the boy who kills his parents and then begs for mercy on the grounds that he's an orphan. They're in there saying it's 200 years old. It's only been invoked 3 times during, actual wars, hard wars, hot wars. But they're the ones who allowed some 10 to 20 million illegals, criminals in many instances, on top of the illegal entry, to come into this country over the past 4 years. The most extraordinary thing we've seen in a century when it comes to illegal immigration in this country. And now when President Trump does something extraordinary to combat it, which is to declare an invasion, to declare an incursion, that now they turn around and say, well, you're using antiquated law. What are you doing? This is extraordinary. Like, this has only been used yes, you created the circumstances that made this necessary.
And that's the crux of the matter that no one seems willing to mention. These are not ordinary times, and it's the Democrats' consistent failures on immigration reform that have swung the pendulum to the right with a mandate for Donald Trump. And it's a test for how democratic they really are if that mandate is allowed to carry through. But this is just an issue that seems to be getting more into a tangled mess as time goes on. So tell me in the comments what you think, and please share this across your social media to get more voices in this debate. But until then, I don't think the Trump administration is going to allow more delays, especially as they face pressure from their base over the issue.